The fairy has hence banned me from traveling with her, so this time I must find my way into the other world on my own. Naturally, I didn't know where to start. How does one go about traveling into another world? Who was I even to ask? How would I even be able to ask without appearing like a lunatic? Cinderellian society is very judgmental, and I surely would have been ridiculed if my mission was discovered. I came to the conclusion that I'd have to ask someone who was crazy in their own right, so no one would believe them if they spoke of what I had inquired. I needed someone I could trust, but who would never be trusted by the world. I figured such a person didn't exist, and I lost hope until I remembered the traveling tradesman. He was infamous for finding naive children in the woods and trading their items of value for items he claimed to be magical. He was rumored to have given Jack the beans that grew his beanstalk. Surely, if anyone had heard of another world, it would be him. He was on the move at all times. Since warrants for his arrest had been made in all of the kingdoms, he would be nearly impossible to find, but then again, my entire quest was virtually impossible. Late one night, I traveled to a tavern up by the stream from my home. There, I befriended two farmers and I proceeded to buy them round after round of drinks. After we had had a few laughs about childhood adventures and adolescent mistakes, I asked them if they had ever heard of the traveling tradesman. They both grew very quiet and were almost offended by the question. I assured them it was purely out of curiosity and I wasn't accusing them of anything. I purchased another round of drinks, and after they were consumed, the farmers confessed they had done business with him in earlier years. I traded 2 goats for a watering can that was supposed to magically water all my crops by itself. One of the farmers said, "The darn thing never worked, and it had a leak. It was the biggest mistake of my life." I traded 2 cows for a goose he told me would. I traded 2 cows for a goose he told me would lay golden eggs, the other claimed. The goose was a male. He gave me a gander. They tried convincing me to call off my search for him, but after one final round of drinks, they told me of the routes he covertly took through the woods. I must have searched every patch of trees in the charming kingdom. Finally, in the woods just south of the Red Riding Hood kingdom border, I found him. The traveling tradesman was an odd, elderly, disheveled man. He wore several layers of raggedy clothing, and he had a long gray beard. There were dark circles under his eyes, and one of the eyes wandered to the left, so it was difficult to tell what or whom he was looking at. He traveled with a large cart that was pulled by a single mule. He was making a deal with a small boy holding a chicken when I first saw him. "Wear this bear claw, and you'll grow up to be the strongest boy in your village," the tradesman told the boy, and then placed a necklace with the large bear claw around his neck and took the chicken from him. The boy smiled and ran off. The tradesman placed the chicken in the back of his cart. He must have made other trades that day, because he had already collected 2 geese and a pig. "Are you a friend or a foe?" the tradesman asked me. "A friend, I believe," I said. "Oh, good," he said with a jolly clap. "Then what may I do for you, friend? Would you like a bag of magic pebbles that grow into boulders? It'll only cost you a duck. Or perhaps you'd like to trade a swine for a loaf of bread that'll make you never be hungry again?" "No, thank you," I said cautiously. "I've come to you for advice." "Advice?" the tradesman said. The eyebrow above his wandering eye rose. "That, my friend, is something no one has ever asked me for." "What do you wish to know?" "I am wondering," I started, but wasn't sure how to put it into words. "What is the farthest distance you've traveled?" The tradesman scratched his beard and thought about it. "Well, I'd honestly say there isn't a place in this world I haven't been," he told me. "I've traveled from the southwest to the northeast and from the southeast to the northwest. I've been from the bottom of the corner kingdom to the top of the sleeping kingdom, and from the tip of Elf Empire to the coast of Fairy Kingdom. What about farther than that? I interrupted him, fearing he might continue listing every journey he had ever taken. Farther than that? Both of the tradesmen's eyebrows were raised now. What's farther than that? Only ocean is beyond that, and that's it. What about a different world? Have you ever heard of one or how to travel to one? I finally asked. The tradesman got a funny look in his eyes. Or should I say, eye. Young man, I've been all over the world, and I've never seen any suggestion of there being another, he said. The topic upset him somehow, and he hopped aboard his cart and took the reins of his mule. Wait, please don't go, I pleaded. You youngsters always take pleasure in harassing an old man. Well, I won't allow it, he said. He began to travel up the path. I was so desperate I stood in front of his mule and was nearly trampled. I mean you no harm, old man, I assured him. You don't understand. I've been to another world, another place and time, and I've seen extraordinary things. I need to go back. It may be the greatest wish I will ever have. My arms were spread out, and I fell to my knees. I felt like an imbecile confessing a preposterous need to a preposterous man. The tradesman sat still with his good eye fixed on me. Is it truly the most desired wish in your heart? He asked. Yes, I pleaded. I've never wanted anything more in my life. If it's a wish you desire, then there's only one thing you need, he said. What is that? I asked him. The wishing spell, the tradesman said. At first, I thought he was joking. The wishing spell? I asked him. You mean the childish legend? It is as real as the nose on my face, the tradesman said. Many men have spent their lives trying to obtain it. Legend has it that if you collect a series of objects and place them in close proximity, the collector's one true wish will be granted. I didn't know whether or not to believe him. Perhaps he was harassing me now. My brain was critical, but my heart chose to learn more. And how do I find these items? I asked. I don't have the slightest idea, he said. Now I was frustrated with him. All of that explanation for nothing? I turned my back on him and began heading back home. But I know someone who does, the tradesman called after me. Who? I demanded. I never trade for free, the tradesman said, and extended an open palm toward me.